The story begins in a remote Siberian prison, hidden deep in endless snow. After World War II, Russian forces had captured many German soldiers and forced them into hard labor, making them work day and night in coal mines. The prison didn't have much security, but no one even tried to escape. Why? Because it was surrounded by snow for thousands of kilometers, and the nearest town was over 14,000 kilometers away. Escaping wasn't just risky, it was a death sentence in the freezing cold. No one had a real chance. But there was one prisoner who still had hope. His name was Reed Firel. Smart and determined, Reed had been sentenced to 25 years in that prison, but he refused to accept that his life would end there. He missed his wife, he missed his daughter, and deep down, he believed he could make it out. One day, that chance finally came. He found a way to sneak onto a coal freight train leaving the prison. As the train rolled into the icy night, Reed looked up and saw the stars. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. But his freedom didn't last long. The train was stopped not far from the prison, and when Reed looked out, a Russian soldier was already standing there, aiming a gun at him. Reed was caught. This time, instead of being locked up again, they threw him into an open-air cell. There was no roof, no shelter, just snow, wind, and freezing rain. He was left there for 2 entire days. On the 3rd morning, the prison warden came to him. He didn't yell or threaten him. He simply said, "Your friends are waiting for you." Reed didn't understand until he was brought back to the other prisoners. They were standing in a circle, holding sticks and iron rods. They hadn't eaten in 2 days, punished because of Reed's escape. And now, they wanted someone to blame. Without hesitation, they attacked him. Reed was beaten so badly he had to be carried to the prison hospital. The doctor, who was also a German prisoner, did what he could to help. When Reed finally opened his eyes, weak and broken, he looked at the doctor and said, "I'm going to try again. But this time, I'll need your help." The doctor stared at him, stunned. Even after all that, Reed wasn't ready to give up. The doctor looked at Reed and told him that escaping from the prison was nearly impossible. Even if he made it out, the freezing cold outside would kill him. But then he also revealed a darker truth. Staying inside meant a slow death too. The coal mines they worked in were filled with poisonous carbon, and every breath brought them closer to diseases like cancer. That's when the doctor said something Reed didn't expect. He told him to escape. One last time, whatever it takes. He opened a small storage box and handed Reed all his warm clothes, shoes, gloves, a thick coat, everything he'd been secretly collecting. Then he gave him a gun for protection. He told Reed that Russian soldiers often hide food near the railway lines, and if he was lucky, he could survive off it. Reed asked why he was giving everything away, and the doctor simply said, "Because I don't have time." He had been planning to escape himself, but just a week ago, he found out he had cancer. The doctor knew he wouldn't live another month. Before Reed left, the doctor handed him a lunchbox and said, "If you make it, please give this to my family. Tell them I didn't make it out." That night, Reed escaped again, this time on foot. He didn't want any risk. He walked through the dark, pushing forward through snow and cold wind. Even when morning came, he didn't stop. He was terrified that soldiers would find him. And back at the prison, the warden had already discovered his escape. He rushed to the doctor's quarters, but it was too late. The doctor had taken his own life. He knew what would happen if he got caught helping a prisoner. He wouldn't survive it. So he made his choice. The warden immediately sent out teams of soldiers with orders to bring Reed back alive. They searched for days, but heavy snowfall had already erased Reed's tracks. It was as if he'd vanished into the storm. Most believed he had frozen to death, but the warden wasn't convinced. He knew Reed was stronger than that. He knew this man wouldn't give up easily. And he was right. Out in the snow, Reed was still moving. Tired, freezing, starving, but still going. On the 9th day after his escape, just when it felt like the end was near, he suddenly heard dogs barking behind him. He turned and saw a sled racing toward him. Before he could react, the sled slammed into him and kept going. Reed's eyes snapped open and he realized it was just a hallucination. The dogs, the sled, none of it was real. In truth, he had been walking on foot for the past 9 days. His food was gone, his body was exhausted, and every step felt heavier than the last. Hunger clawed at him, and his legs barely moved. But still, he didn't stop. He couldn't. Days passed and his strength continued to fade. Eventually, his body gave up. He collapsed in the snow, unconscious. Hours later, he slowly opened his eyes to a strange sound echoing around him. He turned his head and there, not far away, was a seal. For the first time in days, Reed's eyes lit up. A spark of hope returned. He fumbled for his gun, raised it, and tried to aim, but his hands were trembling. Weakness took over, and the shot missed. The seal bolted. Reed's heart was racing. That small animal was his only chance at survival. He couldn't lose it. He forced himself up and ran after it. But as he sprinted, the ice beneath him cracked, and in a split second he plunged into freezing water. His legs slammed into something sharp, and pain shot through him. Still, he pulled himself out, drenched, hurt, but determined. He kept chasing the seal, limping through the snow. Just as the creature was about to slip away behind a rock, he stood there in shock for a second, and then dropped to his knees with relief. After days of starving, this moment felt like a miracle. Reed had food now. He cooked the meat, ate until he was full, and finally rested. That night, for the first time in weeks, he slept with a full stomach. But the journey wasn't over. Reed was still completely alone in a world of white, surrounded by nothing but snow. His mind could have broken. The silence, the isolation, it was enough to drive anyone mad. But Reed kept himself grounded. He talked to himself. He repeated positive thoughts out loud. He reminded himself who he was and why he had to keep going. Every day, he checked his direction using a compass, making sure he stayed on track. As same weeks passed. Then, after nearly 2 months of walking, something unbelievable happened. He saw a tree, just a single small tree standing in the snow. But to Reed, it looked like a treasure. He ran toward it laughing and wrapped his arms around it. That tree meant one thing: the snowfield was finally ending. He had crossed it. And just as he hoped, a little farther ahead, the forest began. The white gave way to green. The air smelled different. He had survived the worst part of the journey. He was finally out of the frozen dead zone, and for the first time in a long time, Reed smiled, not out of hope, but out of victory. That night, Reed gathered some wood, lit a fire, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he slept in peace. Surrounded by trees, with warmth on his skin and no guards or fences, he felt human again. But whether the next day brought more peace or another nightmare, no one knew. Elsewhere, the warden was still obsessed. He hadn't stopped searching. He expanded the search radius to 500 kilometers and ordered every soldier to find Reed dead or alive. Meanwhile, Reed was moving through the forest when suddenly, out of nowhere, a violent snowstorm hit. The wind howled through the trees. The storm was so powerful that even tall trees were being ripped from the ground. As Reed tried to push forward, one of those trees came crashing down and landed right on him. He would have died there. But luck hadn't fully abandoned him. That evening, 2 strangers were passing through the area, searching for gold. They spotted Reed trapped under the tree, unconscious, and rushed to pull him out. They saved his life. From that moment, the 3 of them traveled together. For days, they fought through the snowy wilderness side by side. Eventually, they reached a river. To cross it, they built a makeshift wooden boat. As they floated across, the silence between them faded. They began sharing stories of their childhood, memories from lives that now felt far away. But the river had its own plans. The waves suddenly grew stronger. The boat started rocking. One of the men lost his balance and fell into the icy water. He didn't know how to swim. He was drowning. Without hesitation, Reed dove in after him. Struggling against the water, he grabbed the man and dragged him back to the shore, saving his life. But not everyone was so loyal. Their third companion, the greedy one, didn't even look back. He left them behind, thinking they were dead. And when he reached their camp alone, he took the gold and claimed it for himself. Later, when Reed and the man he saved made it back to the tent, they found the greedy one waiting. The man who had almost drowned looked into the eyes of his so-called friend full of betrayal, and, in a rage, he pulled out a gun and shot him. After burying the body, Reed and the man packed up what was left and continued their journey. Months passed. They walked through forests, through storms, always hoping to find signs of life. But winter returned, and the forest was soon buried beneath a thick layer of snow once again. The gold was heavy, and Reed's companion struggled to carry it. Seeing him fall behind, Reed offered to help. "Let me carry it for a while," he said. But greed can twist the mind. The man suspected Reed of trying to steal the gold. In a sudden burst of panic and rage, he shoved Reed to the ground and stormed off alone. Reed hit the frozen ground hard and lost consciousness. When he woke up, the world was spinning, his head throbbed, and then he heard it. Growling, a pack of wolves was closing in. Reed scrambled to his feet and started climbing a tree. But as he climbed, one of the wolves leapt and sank its teeth into his leg. He screamed in pain. The tree, already weak, cracked under the pressure and snapped. Reed immediately fell hard. Lying there in the snow, surrounded by wolves, Reed thought it was over. But then some loud gunshots echoed through the forest. When Reed opened his eyes, a few of the wolves were lying motionless in the snow. The rest had vanished into the trees. Standing nearby were hunters, locals from a nearby village. They had heard the wolves and arrived just in time. The hunters carried Reed back to their village. The people there treated his wounds, gave him food, and finally, safety. After years of running, hiding, bleeding, and freezing, Reed had finally made it. He had reached human civilization. Reed was deeply touched by the kindness of the villagers. He stayed there for many days and they treated him like family, offering food, shelter, and warmth that he hadn't felt in years. But one day, everything changed. A letter arrived, signed by the warden himself. It warned that a German soldier had escaped from prison and that anyone helping him would be considered a traitor. As much as Reed wanted to stay, he couldn't risk the lives of those who had helped him. With a heavy heart, he decided to leave. Before he left, the villagers gave him supplies and a loyal hunting dog to keep him company. For the first time in a long while, Reed didn't feel alone. He and the dog traveled for days until they came across a lumber mill. The dog, hungry, ran inside searching for food. Reed followed, only to be recognized by some workers who took him to the owner. Reed told him everything, his escape, his journey, the years he had spent running. The workers felt sorry for him and gave him food, and the owner arranged for Reed to secretly board a train headed toward Germany. Reed's heart filled with hope. Maybe he was finally going home. But that hope shattered quickly. What Reed didn't know was that the mill owner had informed the warden. When the train neared the next station, Reed spotted soldiers waiting in the distance. His instincts kicked in. Before the train could stop, he jumped off and ran. Russian guards saw him and started chasing. Reed sprinted across the tracks, but suddenly, out of nowhere, the warden appeared right in front of him. His heart sank. It felt like the end. Just as the warden raised his hand to grab him, Reed's dog lunged at the warden, biting hard and knocking him back. That one moment gave Reed the chance to run again. But as he ran, a gunshot echoed behind him. He turned and saw his dog lying. Pain tore through him, but he didn't stop. He ran harder, climbed a bridge, and leaped onto a passing train. Just like that, he vanished into the wind once again. Years passed, and it was now 1952. 7 years since Reed had escaped prison. He was wandering through a village fair somewhere in Central Asia, tired and hungry. The smell of food pulled him toward a stall where 2 girls were selling pancakes. He wanted one more than anything, but his pockets were empty. As he turned away, heartbroken, one of the girls noticed. Without a word, she broke off a piece and handed it to him. Reed hesitated, then accepted it gratefully. He hadn't tasted kindness like that in a long time. Unnoticed by Reed, a man in the crowd had been watching the whole scene. A quiet observer, Jewish, older, thoughtful. When Reed later stepped into a nearby church to rest, the man silently followed him inside. That man in the church, he too had once been a prisoner. But instead of turning Reed in, he chose to help him. He quietly took Reed home, where for the first time in years, Reed looked at himself in a mirror and shaved. It was like shedding the past. The man even arranged a fake passport so Reed could finally cross the Russian border into Germany. Reed was overwhelmed by his kindness. Before leaving, he thanked the man with deep gratitude and set off on the final stretch of his journey. Weeks passed, and Reed finally reached the Russian border. He handed the fake passport to the soldier, his heart racing. What if they recognized him? What if they recognized the fake passport? But to his surprise, the soldier simply nodded and waved him through. Reed was stunned, and then he laughed. For the first time in years, it was a laugh of relief. of freedom. He continued walking, and soon he reached the bridge that led straight into Germany. His homeland, his freedom. But just as he reached the middle of the bridge, a blinding light hit his eyes. He froze. Standing in front of him was the warden. Reed looked back and realized he was still on Russian soil. It means if the warden wanted, he could arrest him right there. For a moment, it felt like everything had fallen apart again. Years of struggle, of pain, all about to be undone. But then, something completely unexpected happened. The warden stepped aside. He looked Reed in the eye and said, "This was a fight between two soldiers, me and you. And you won. Go live your life." Reed couldn't believe it, but this time, he didn't run. He walked forward, slowly, with tears in his eyes, and crossed the border into Germany. He was finally home. Soon after, he reached the place he had dreamed of every single day, his house. From a distance, he saw his wife and daughter leaving for church. He quietly followed them. At first, his daughter didn't notice, but something made her look back, and in that moment she froze. Her eyes widened. She recognized him. Without a word, she ran into his arms. His wife soon joined, tears streaming down her face. The three of them embraced, after years of pain, silence, and hope. And that's how this incredible journey ended. A true story of courage, survival, and the unbreakable will to live. If you like this unbelievable real-life story, make sure to like and subscribe for more such amazing recaps.